Today, I'm going to be making a little feast from Trails in the Sky first chapter, in particular one that Estelle and Joshua got to enjoy at the Bright family home. These foods look relatively simple, including a beautiful roast chicken with vegetables and some cherry tomatoes, as well as this onion gratin that I have some secrets to show you. This video is sponsored by Trails in the Sky first chapter, but I'll talk more about that later because I have a ton of work to do. Let's just get into it. The first thing I need to make for this massive meal is this beautiful basil chicken. This basil roasted chicken isn't an overly complicated recipe to make, and I'm going to leave that in the description below for you to download later. But the first thing we have to do is heat up about 32 ounces of water for the brine. I just throw this in the microwave until it's lukewarm. Then I'm going to add about a quarter cup of granulated sugar to help sweeten the brine, and I'm just mixing that until that's completely dissolved, followed by 1/2 cup of kosher salt. The salt and the sugar are going to deeply season the chicken. This way we don't actually have to season it with any other salt or sugar later. Once this has dissolved in there, I'm ready to add in some citrus. I think citrus is very important for any kind of brine because it adds a ton of flavor and it does help tenderize the meat. I'm juicing 1 whole lemon directly into my bowl with my chicken and then making sure I shove those half lemons directly into the chicken. This is going to further flavor the inside of the chicken as well. Now I'm going to add about 3 more containers of water. In total, this is going to be 1 gallon worth of liquid for the brine. You do have to dilute it and you don't want to just go off of that warm water we used earlier, otherwise it would be too salty. Now I do want to flip my chicken so this way the breasts are completely submerged in the liquid. The reason is we're not really going to utilize the spine of the chicken and we're not going to be eating that, so it's better to have the breasts fully submerged in the brine. Throw a lid on this and let it rest overnight for about 24 hours. Now I do also have to cut a ton of onions for the onion gratin soup. When you do caramelized onions, you do want to make sure you do a lot of them at one time because it's such a laborious task that doing a small amount doesn't make sense. So in this case, I'm peeling back about 5 whole yellow onions and then slicing them relatively thin. These don't have to be paper thin, but you do want them thin enough to where they caramelize really nicely. I'm taking all of these first batch of onions, placing it into a container, and then getting really sad about the second batch because honestly, I can't handle onions. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it just hurts every part of my body when I cut onions. I'm throwing a lid on this for no reason whatsoever because I'm just going to start cooking them down. Now that I've cleared my eyes of every allergy ever from that amount of onions, I want to explain to you why I'm making the soup the day ahead. I personally think soups are usually better the next day. They have time to sit and marinate and get really nice in the refrigerator. Yes, when you go to reheat it, you have to be a little more careful, especially if it's a creamy based soup. But since this is a broth based soup, you can make this 2 or 3 days ahead and just heat it up when you want. Throw some of that sourdough on there and some cheese. Oh, baby, let's do this. Look, that whole previous segment was just a stall tactic to rest my eyes. Now into a very large pot, I'm adding in around 3 tablespoons of olive oil, followed by all of those onions we had just sliced. Well, almost all of them, but you know, I'm a mess sometimes. I think we all are from time to time, and that's okay. Now, these onions do have to cook on a medium-low temperature for a very, very long time. And when I say very long time, I'm talking about close to an hour or more. This does take a long time, so if you have one of these burners, you might need an extra thing of gas. I'm just gonna move it over to the other stove. Now, after cooking them on the other stove for about 30 minutes over that medium-low temperature, these have softened up a little bit. This is actually where I'm going to start seasoning them just a bit. I'm adding in 2 heavy pinches of salt, followed by about 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Now, the granulated sugar isn't always necessary, but it does help accelerate the caramelization process, and it does add a good flavor to the soup. After another 30 to 40 minutes, our onions have been caramelized. This is where I'm going to add in 1 cup of sherry wine, which is a pretty traditional flavor for this. But I'm also adding in about a 1/2 cup of Zhaoxing wine. This is actually a Chinese cooking wine, and I love the flavor for this in this soup. Next is a bit of beef, chicken, or vegetable bouillon. I'm gonna leave that up to you, and you can add in whatever flavor here you want, but in my case, I'm adding vegetable bouillon directly to the soup after the 2 wines. Next is about 1 tablespoon of dried thyme. You can also use fresh thyme if you have it, but in my case, I'm using some dried thyme to help flavor the soup. Now, because I have some very bold flavors in this soup, I'm actually using 2 different stocks. 32 ounces of beef stock and 32 ounces of chicken stock, followed by 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. The soy sauce is non-traditional, just like the Zhaoxing cooking wine is non-traditional, but the flavors are amazing for this. I'm throwing a lid on it and cooking it for about 45 minutes until all of that broth starts to permeate. At this point, you do want to taste your soup and make sure it's seasoned properly. This is the best time to season it. If it needs more of anything, go ahead and add it now. Now this just needs to be cooled down and I can reheat it when I'm ready to eat it. Preferably preferably when the chicken's done. Now it is the next day, so I'm going to be roasting off my chicken and heating up my soup. This is the best part about splitting this up into 2 different days, is that you don't have to spend all day making everything. You can if you want to, but I like to take my sweet time. That way I get more game time in, you know, it's kind of a kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But now that it's cooking day, we need to do a few more things. And in this case, I'm peeling away some basil from the stems, and this is going to be most of the flavor for the chicken other than the brine. The basil does need to be cleaned and dried, but once it's cleaned and dried, the next step is super simple. You just need to chop it up pretty finely. Don't throw this in a food processor because I think it bruises the basil, and instead use your knife and cut it up nice and small. You're going to want a significant amount of basil, about 1/4 cup. Next is about 4 tablespoons of whole unsalted butter. Remember to use unsalted butter because we've already seasoned the chicken with salt. And of course, as soon as I take the butter out, Gandalf is just using his sniffer to go in on it. Gandalf, don't you lick that countertop. Gandalf, stop. No, please. Now I have to clean the countertop. These are just the things you do when you have a very demanding cat in the household. Now we can take the chicken out of this beautiful brine that we had made yesterday. I should mention I did sneak in some black peppercorns later on in the evening because I totally forgot to add them in earlier. So there's also about 2 tablespoons of black peppercorns. When you're removing the chicken from the brine, make sure you remove the lemons from the chicken as well. You don't want to bake it with the chicken because it can make it a little bit bitter. I used to have to truss like 25 to 30 chickens a day when I was working in hotels. It was one of our more popular menu items, which is surprising because it's chicken and a lot of people don't care for chicken, but I think this chicken is fantastic. But I still have to stuff it with the butter and the basil, and it's just gonna make it that much better. Now, trussing chickens should be something that most average cooks should know how to do. And I will admit, it's been such a long time since I had to truss a ton of chickens that I did take my time here making sure I did it properly. I'm also trussing this backwards. Normally I would have the legs facing me, but I wanted to make sure you guys could see how the chicken is trussed. You start off by wrapping it around the neck of the chicken, following towards the bottom, and then taking the 2 legs and kind of crisscrossing the legs and using the twine to hold the legs together in place. This is going to cause the chicken breasts to plump upward. That way it cooks nice and evenly. Next, I like tucking in the chicken wings and then using the remaining twine to tie it back off towards the top of the neck and just cutting away any excess twine. This is what my chicken looks like. Now, the next part you might be creeped out about, but you do need to use your finger to separate the chicken skin from the chicken breast. This way we can have a beautiful pocket for which to shove as much butter into as we can. I like using the 2 dabs of butter. This way the entire chicken breast is going to be covered in that beautiful butter. Next is adding in that basil that we had chopped up earlier. You could make a compound butter here, but since this is all going to be melted together into the chicken breast, it doesn't really make sense to use a compound butter. That's why I kept them separate. Now I'm going to roast this at 350 degrees until the chicken breast hit about 158 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, given this tavern meal is relatively simple, we're going to have some very simple accompaniments as well. See how easy that is when you can do it in 2 days? It's so nice to like prep ahead a little bit. I should do that more often. It did look like on the plate we have a bit of fresh and or steamed broccoli, but I'm gonna go with steamed broccoli because I love steamed broccoli in general. For this, you're just going to need a giant pot of boiling water, and once that water comes to a boil, add in a good amount of salt. Like, look at how much salt I'm adding in. It needs to be salty like the ocean. You also need an ice bath. Ice baths are incredibly important when blanching vibrant green vegetables like broccoli. It helps keep that beautiful green color, especially after cooking. This broccoli only needs about 30 seconds to cook, but please don't put this directly in your mouth after taking it out of the hot water. That makes no sense. Cool it down first and then give it a taste. If it's nice and al dente, which means it has a little crunch to it, it's ready to pull out of the water. Put the broccoli directly into the ice bath and then just discard all of that salted water unless you have anything else to blanch. In my case, I don't, so I'm putting this now empty pot back onto the stovetop with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil and cranking it up to a nice high heat. I'm also going to sear off these beautiful cherry tomatoes that our neighbor gave us. These are basically candy. Look at how juicy these things are. So juicy. I don't know why I sounded like a caveman. My brain just immediately went to caveman mode after I tasted those cherry tomatoes. I'm only seasoning the cherry tomatoes with a little bit of salt and just trying to blister them for about 1 minute. If you cook cherry tomatoes too long, they're just going to get way too soft and turn into mush. After cooking these for around a minute, I'm throwing these back in the fridge to cool down and removing the broccoli from the water. Don't let the broccoli sit in the ice water too long, otherwise they can get waterlogged and get kind of mushy. Now we're basically at the home stretch for plating up this meal. The chicken is beautifully cooked. You won't get a completely golden brown color all the way around the chicken because this is not a rotisserie chicken, but it's going to look nice and toasty, especially on the breasts where all the butter was. Next is to reheat the soup we had made the previous day. You can reheat as much of this as you want, and honestly, you're probably going to heat up a lot of it because it's so freaking good that I just ate this for the next 3 days. I'm going to be honest here. You do want to reheat this relatively gently though. Bring it up to about a medium heat, and once it starts simmering, just move it off of the heat and we can get started on the plating. Now, I did pick up a massive French loaf from my local grocery store, and I'm using this as the crouton for this soup. Once I have my bread cut into this giant round, I'm putting just a small dab of butter onto a flat pan and melting it over that low medium heat. This way the butter doesn't burn and we don't over toast the piece of bread. Now, of course, we do need some cheese on this bread, and we have to pay the cheese tax to Gandalf. Once the bread is nicely toasted on one side, flip it and then immediately put your slice of provolone on top.
No, Gandalf, you already got your cheese. You don't need any more cheese.
Look, the cheese tax has been paid, but this guy is a troll on the bridge and needs more cheese tax. I'm just trying to melt my cheese nice and evenly.
Now that I have the soup ready and the chicken is rested, I can plate up both of these dishes so we can just feast. But I have to say thank you to today's sponsor, Trails in the Sky First Chapter. Trails in the Sky First Chapter is based on the beloved classic. With breathtaking brand new visuals, I mean, look at how gorgeous this looks. Redefined gameplay, one of my favorite features is that you can go from real-time combat to turn-based combat. I don't think I've really seen that in a video game before, and that's rad. And it takes you through an unforgettable adventure across Liberal Kingdom. Head to the link below and take flight across this beautiful, brand new reimagining of Trails in the Sky First Chapter. Trails in the Sky First Chapter arrives on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, and Steam on September 19th this year. So head down to the description below and make sure you wishlist it over on Steam or pre-order it on your platform of choice. Thank you to Trails in the Sky First Chapter for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back into it.
Now it's time to actually plate up this feast. First, I have to remove the twine from my roasted chicken.
Gandalf, no, Gandalf, no, no chicken for you, sir. No, you already had 2 breakfasts already. Gandalf, you're gonna lose trash can privileges, sir.
Some of you in the comments asked me what trash can privileges were, and it's actually just the trash can that he sits on during every video. I don't have access to my trash can, so sometimes I have to move him off of it to get access back to it.
No, Gandalf, no, this is not the good time. I have to fight Gandalf to get this on here. Gandalf, no, I know it's a chicken, but you cannot have it, sir.
Look, he totally is a wizard. Every time I move him, he's just right back there. All I want to do is plate up this chicken with some of these gorgeous cherry tomatoes and some of this reheated broccoli I had boiled earlier. Make sure you use some tongs here so you don't burn your hands on the broccoli. The last bit of garnish is just some fresh basil that we had saved from earlier, and our chicken is ready to eat, but I still have to plate up that beautiful soup. Luckily, I had heated up the soup earlier and I just kind of kept it warm. Now the soup just goes into a bowl, and admittedly, I don't have one of those fancy stone bowls, so if you're making this at home, just use a really nice bowl, put the hot soup into that, place the bread with the cheese on top, and then use a torch to get some nice color on the cheese, or throw it into an oven on the broil setting for just a few seconds to get that beautiful golden char.
This is realistically not that hard to make. It just takes a little bit of time, and there is a little bit of process behind it, but you get a whole chicken out of it with a ton of veggies and a bunch of French onion soup, and it's one of my favorite soups. I would be extremely excited to have this meal any time of the day. Plus, this chicken is so good as sandwiches for leftovers. Oh, amazing. And the best part is I'm gonna leave this recipe in the link down below where you can download it from Trails in the Sky First Chapter. There's a full cookbook available with a bunch of different recipes from the video game, so if you wanna check that out, I'll have the description down below. Now, let's break into this bad boy, because I'm excited. Now, like any good adventurer, I'm just gonna eat the chicken right out of the plate. I don't need to plate this up. I'm not gonna put it on a fancy dish. It's gonna be eaten right out of here. What I really wanna show you guys though, is the inside of this chicken breast. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna separate the leg just a little bit so this way I can free up the chicken breast. And then I'm gonna cut down the breastbone of the chicken. So this way it frees it up just a little. Then I can take a piece right off of the chicken. Let's see what this thing looks like. No, Gandalf, my chicken. You've already had chicken twice today, sir. Oh, that looks so juicy. I kind of want to get some of the skin with it. You have lost trash can privileges. My chicken today. Look at that chicken breast. That looks absolutely succulent. I wonder, I'm gonna do the thing that I hate the most on social media where people like squeeze it to show how juicy it is. This thing is soft, and I lost my chicken skin. Oh, there it is, there it is. You can see all of the basil is still on the inside of the chicken breast as well, which is beautiful. It smells like butter, it smells like basil. This is a treat. Cheers. If you're gonna have chicken, you may as well brine it. It takes an extra day, but the flavor is unparalleled. On top of adding the butter to the chicken breast, you literally can't get it better than this. This is, to me, the perfect chicken. It's salted nicely from the brine. It's a little sweet from the brine as well. It's beautifully juicy. Like, oh my God. I actually can't get over how moist this chicken breast is. Look at it. Look, can you focus, please? Look at it. Oh my God. Perfect freaking chicken breast, man. I'm so stoked about that. That's so good. Get some of these cherry tomatoes. This is fantastic, but I want to enjoy this soup. Now, normally, this would go in some kind of an oven-safe container or bowl, but like most people don't have that, so I decided to use a regular bowl with the method I had shown you, and it's gonna be just as good. Like, look at the bread has soaked up all of the juices from the soup. You see all of the caramelized onions in there. That's how much onion you want per bite. You want this loaded with onions and cheese and bread. Cheers. This is a treat, man. I love this soup. It's salty, it's sweet from the onions. The bread is just soaking up all of the broth, has the creaminess from the provolone. Dear Lord. If you've never had French onion soup, please try this, and try it with the soy sauce and the Zhaojing wine. They're very, very different flavors, but they complement the onions so well. I'm gonna be eating this for the next couple of hours, and I'm probably gonna save a lot of this to make sandwiches because that's amazing. You can combine this with this to make a sandwich. Trust me, it's fantastic. Thank you again to Trails in the Sky First Chapter for sponsoring today's video. And if you want this recipe along with others, check out the link in the description below where you can find that cookbook. My name is Chef PK, and remember, keep playing with your food.
Wishlist Trails in the Sky First Chapter with the link down below because your journey begins now.